sex determination in human beings. Okay, yesterday also we have discussed about it, but we have not discussed. We have discussed about that those organisms who reproduce sexually. But today we are specifically discussing about that those organisms that is sex determination in human beings. I have told you that each human cell is diploid in nature. It means that it has 23 pair of chromosomes, right? There is the 23 pair of chromosomes. Okay, out of these 23 pair, 22 pair are as such, which are known as, which are similar to both the sexes, which is similar to both male as well as female. So they are known as autosomes. 22 pair which are similar in both men and women are known as autosome, and one pair which determine the sex of the child, that is one pair which determine the sex of the child, that is called as sex chromosome, and it is different in male and in female. They are quite different in male and in female. Rest, if I talk about autosomes, they are same. They are quite similar. They are similar in both men and women. They carry those genes which are there for the somatic characteristic. But if I talk about sex of the child, one pair which determine sex of the child, that is different. And now let's write the genetic description of that particular. If I talk about the, you can say the genetic description of the cell which is present in the male, it will be, there will be 22 pair of autosomes, and here I am writing about the male. There will be 22 pair of autosome and one pair of sex chromosome, right? Now, once I write down the genetic description, it will be 44 total chromosome, because this is pair, 44 into 2, that's one, plus one pair. If I write down the description of this pair, it will be X and Y, right? So it means that the males are heteromorphic. Males are heteromorphic because the two gene which govern the two chromosomes, the two gene which govern the characteristic of the child are different. They are not same. They are not identical. Although there is a pair of chromosome, but it is not same. It is non-identical. So they will be called as heteromorphic. And now let me, this is all about male. Now let's describe about the female. There will be 22 pair of autosomes. These autosomes will be similar in both male as well as in female, same, plus one pair of sex chromosome. Now I will write down the written description. It will be 44 plus 44 plus one pair in which the genetic description of that pair will be X and X chromosome only. It means they are identical to each other. So females are homomorphic. Females are homomorphic because the pair of gene which govern the sex of the child is similar in females, whereas the males are heteromorphic. Why? Because the pair of gene which govern the sex of the child is different, right? So this was all these two pairs, these 22 pairs, that is 44 chromosomes, are called as autosomes, and they are similar in both male as well as in female. Now, as I've told you, this is a diploid cell. But gametes are not diploid in nature. Let's see how the sex of the child is determined. We will not talk about the 22 pair. We will talk about only one pair, that is sex chromosome. If I write down the genetic description of the male and female, because one gamete will be contributed by male and one gamete will be contributed by female. When these two gametes will fuse with each other, then the fertilization will take place, and the resultant then the sex of the resultant progeny will be determined. Now, if I talk about the sex is in the male, a pair of gene governs it, and the genetic description of that pair is X and Y. And in female, the genetic description of the sex chromosome is X and X. But I have told you that the gamete will are not diploid in nature. Gametes are haploid in nature. Gametes are haploid in nature. Why? Because if XY from male will be contributed and XX in female will be contributed, that means total there will be two pair in progeny, which is it's not possible to survive for such an organism. Like हमारे पास in humans we are having total 46 chromosome. If 46 chromosome will be contributed by the father and 46 chromosomes will be contributed by the mother, then the progeny will have 92 chromosome, and it is totally, that means the progeny will be totally different from, neither it will match to the female nor it will match to the, and it's all the processes will be totally, all the genetic information will be totally different from the parents. So it's necessary that the number of chromosome will always remain constant throughout the generation. And in order to tackle the problem, that is why the genetic material, the gametes contain only half of the genetic material, one chromosome from each pair, so that half will be contributed by male and half will be contributed by the female, so that the number of chromosome in the progeny will remain constant. And here I was talking about the male gamete. Now there is a chance that the male gamete will have X chromosome or Y, right? It's a matter of chance that whichever gamete was present for the fertilization, because there is a 50-50% chance that in the gamete there will be 50% chance of X and 50% chance of Y. But if I write down for female, the chance is only X and X. Why? Because females are homomorphic. Their chromosomes are similar. Now, once this X, if this X fuses with this X, or if this X fuses with this X, then what will be the resultant? So I may write down now the chances. So there is the chance that the gamete will have X or Y, and these gametes will contain X and X. Now by forming, we will write the genetic description of the progeny by using the Punnett square. Here I will write down the gametes of the male, and here I am going to write down the gametes of the female. If this X crosses with, if this X fuses with this X, if this gamete having the genetic material X fuses with this gamete having the genetic material X, then the genetic information present in the progeny will be XX. And you know, if the pair is homomorphic, then the resultant zygote will be female. And if this X combines with this X, again the resultant zygote will be female. But now if this Y crosses with this X, the resultant progeny will be male because it is heteromorphic. So wherever there is the heteromorphic sex chromosome, it will be the male, and wherever there will be the homomorphic, so there is the 50-50 chance that whether the zygote will be a male or a female. This is the way how the sex of the child is determined. This is the way how the sex of the progeny is determined in the human. You know, there are 4 blood groups. A person can have any of the 4 blood group depending upon the genetic information which is present in the sex gamete, which help in the formation of that particular organ. Okay, that particular organism. Okay, here let me tell you, O is the recessive one. O blood group is the one which is recessive in nature. That means that O will decide the characteristic only in presence of an identical one. O. Okay. If it receives O from mother and if it receives from O from father, then only the progeny will have O as blood group. Why? Because O gene is recessive and A and B are codominant. That means that they cannot, if AB gene is contributed, then the blood group which will be possessed by an organism is AB because they are codominant. They both will appear in the organism. Now, if I write down the genetic description of that particular gene which determines the blood group, then it can be written as IA and IA, or if I write down IA, okay, then the prevalent blood group among the progeny will be A blood group. If both the gene are same, then it will be. If it is A and B, because they are codominant over each other, so the resultant blood group among the progeny will be AB, right? Now, as you know that half of the genetic material comes from the father and half comes from the mother, right? Because gametes are the one which carry only one gene out of the pair. So the gamete, there is a chance, if the blood group prevalent among the child is A, then there is a chance that maybe the blood group, the genetic material, and this is the gamete of mother or father, that doesn't. These are the 2 gametes. One gamete in which there is A present and another gamete in which there is O present, O gene present, right? Now, what will be the blood group of the progeny? The blood group of the progeny will be, although it's a pair of gene, but which trait will appear? The trait A will appear in the progeny. It means that the blood group of the progeny will be A. Why? Because A is dominating gene and O is recessive. I have told you which decide it's a non-identical pair. It's a non-identical pair. The one which will decide the characteristic of an organism is the dominating gene, and here the characteristic will be determined by A because A is dominating over O. So the prevalent blood group in the progeny will be A. In the same manner, if again we are here finding the chances, that what is the chance of blood group prevailing A among the progeny. If one of the parent contribute, if the gamete with which the organism has been formed, the gamete by the fusion of the two gametes of the progeny is formed, if those gamete which has been contributed by male and female, if that gamete contains A and A has been contributed by the male as well as A is contributed by the female, then the resultant progeny will have A as blood group because it's an identical pair, right? In the same manner, what is the chance of progeny having the blood group B? If the gamete with which the progeny was conceived, if in the blood group the genetic material which was contributed by male was B and the genetic material which was contributed by the female was B, then the progeny will have BB as the genetic composition and the prevalent blood group among the progeny will be B. In the same manner, if the gamete with which the progeny was conceived is the male has contributed B and the female has contributed O, or male has contributed O and female has contributed B, then the resultant let me tell you, then the resultant zygote will have blood group. It will carry genetic material from both BO, but the characteristic which will be prevalent among the progeny will be B blood group. Why? Because B is dominating over O. B dominates O. Okay. Is there any other chance of having the blood group B? Yes, there is one more way of having the blood group B, because if the gamete with which the progeny was conceived, if the gamete, both the gametes are having same information, that is, if the blood group is B and B, then the progeny blood group will be B only. Okay. Is there any way of having AB? Yeah. If the gamete which is prevalent is contributed A and this is contributed B, the result of the progeny will be AB blood group, because A and B are codominant. The resultant blood group will be AB, right? Even if any of them contribute O and one of the gamete is having AB, even then it will be this will be AB, right? Now because it's O is always recessive. If I talk about, then when the blood group will be O, blood group O will be only if the gamete with which it was conceived, if the male also contributes O as well as the female contributes O, only then the result, only then the progeny will have O as blood group. Why? Because O is recessive gene which will determine the characteristic only in presence of an identical gene. For that, the contribution from the male should be O and the contribution from the female should also be O. Only then the resultant zygote will have the blood group as O.